Hey y'all, I'm Lauren and welcome to Cantina Cast. Today I am covering Mace Windu issues 1 and 2 written by Marc Bernardin. Marc Bernardin was one of the contributors to Darth Vader Black, White, and Red, so if you're familiar with that series, then you've read something that he has written before. But I haven't read a ton of his stuff, so I wasn't really too sure what to expect going into this, other than knowing it's about Mace, who is one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. So even that alone, just knowing that it's following Mace, that really had me interested in this series, which made it a must read for me. Mace Windu is one of those characters that for me is just so intriguing, and I feel like a lot of people are a little too hard on him sometimes. I'm not denying that he made some mistakes. I'm not denying that he definitely pushed Anakin a little too hard at times and all of that. But Mace is one of those characters that I feel like there is a reason for the way that he acted sometimes. And even though, especially in Tales of the Jedi, even though, sometimes his actions are hard to get behind, I do really believe that he did things that he did because he felt like it was what was necessary. And he is one of those people that is willing to do what's hard, even if it's something that might seem, I guess, like distasteful to put it lightly. But for that reason, I just find him such an interesting character, and I'm just always wanting to get more in his head and understand more of his thought processes behind some of the things that he says and does, because I just really feel like there's some really good stuff there. So anything that has Mace Windu in it, I'm usually really interested in, because I'm always wanting more of that. And I feel like he's one of those characters that in Star Wars canon, we really haven't gotten a lot of insight into yet. And so that's why I was excited for this comic series. And I'm also really excited for the Glass Abyss coming later this year, because I just feel like we need more of that. So anyway, that's my little aside as to why this series was a must read for me. If you're not a huge Mace Windu fan, you may feel differently. It may not be a must read for you, but if you're interested in Mace at all, I feel like this is like one of the few things that we have that's following him and focusing on him. So that was why it was just something I just had to check out. So in issues 1 and 2, I do feel like this is kind of it's an interesting opening to the Mace Windu series. It has me intrigued as to what's going on and what's going to happen, but I think right now it's a little bit early in the series to where we haven't really gotten a ton of introspection on Mace's part yet or anything like that. It's really just more focused on the mission that he's currently on. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this series goes. I'm hoping that maybe we get a little bit more into his background, a little bit more into his inner thoughts and things like that. But at the very least, these first 2 issues did have me interested in continuing with the series, even though I don't feel like I've gotten exactly what I came for quite yet, but it's still early in the series, so I do think that there's still time for that. So at this part, I am going to start discussing spoilers. So if you haven't read this one yet and you're planning to, now is your time to turn back if you don't want to hear any spoilers for this series. Starting off with issue 1, we do open up with Mace right in the middle of a mission. I'm guessing that he's probably not part of the council yet, because in this series, it seems to be the norm that he's being sent on missions. And I know that once you're part of the council, that's kind of not really a thing anymore. So I'm guessing this is before he joins the council, but I could be wrong. It's not confirmed for sure either way quite yet. But we do open the series when he's in the middle of a mission. He is chasing down these prison droids that have been reprogrammed by some mysterious person. We don't find out who that is yet in issues 1 and 2, so we might find out in the future. So he ends up destroying the droids. Mission was a success. And then after that, he goes back to Coruscant, where Yoda gives him his next assignment. So the next thing that he has to do is there is a lady named Azita Cruz who she says that she has a new formula for a more potent kind of coaxium, and she's selling the formula off to the highest bidder. And so the Jedi Council is really wanting to move on this, because if they don't get it first, then a crime syndicate could get it, pirates could get it. I mean, it's going to be bad if the wrong person gets a hold of it. So they send Mace to go find this lady and buy the formula off of her. And one thing I loved is that when they're actually sending him off to go find her, they're like, okay, don't underestimate her. And Mace says, I never underestimate anyone. And I was like, that's right. And that's why he's Mace Windu. For better or worse, he does not underestimate anyone. So he goes to the moon Romira to find her. This is an industrial planet. It's pretty rough. There's some troublemakers that he runs into that he has to get himself out of, and of course, Mace fashion being super cool. He pretty much intimidates them via Jedi mind trick, sends them a vision of him beating them up and is like, you can either run away or like you can have that happen. And that's another thing I love about Mace is his presence is really strong, and that's the perfect example of that feeling that I feel like he elicits in people. So then after this, Mace is trying to be like, okay, where could she be hiding? What type of place would someone like this hide? And he thinks about it for a while and decides to check out the hospital. He feels like there's a pretty good chance she could be hiding there. It turns out he's right. Once he gets there, he's able to bribe the hospital staff into showing him where she's hiding. Then there's a chase that ensues throughout the city, and he eventually catches up to her, and he says, you called, and the Jedi answered. And then that's the close of issue 1, is that last line. And then picking back up with issue 2, Azita is guiding Mace through a tunnel system where she says that the coaxium is being kept. And we do get the sense as they're walking through this tunnel and talking, this is a character that is very out for herself. She's just doing this for profit. She's just trying to survive. She doesn't seem like she's evil by any means. She doesn't seem like a bad person. She's not trying to hurt people, but she is willing to do anything for profit. So that's kind of bad in its own way. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that she's not aggressive and violent. She's just trying to make her own way on this planet. That is a very difficult place to live. And speaking of that, she drugged the scientist that invented this new formula for what's called coaxium ultra. So she drugged the scientist and stole it from him, and then that's how she got this and is able to sell it. Also in this issue, we do get the sense that other people are after her, specifically bounty hunters. And another thing that's after them is when they're walking through the tunnels, they run into boar worms, which are just these massive monsters that live in these tunnels. I mean, you can probably picture what a huge, scary worm could look like, and Mace has to fight them off. But he doesn't kill them, and he explains to Azita that the reason he doesn't kill them is because they're animals. They're just going off of their instincts. They're not, it's not anything personal. And he says that Jedi don't kill unless they absolutely have to. So, that's a good idea. I mean, obviously not all of the Jedi during this era follow that, but that's the goal, is don't kill unless you have to. And one line that he says in reference to that is, we may call this a lightsaber, but it is a shield. It's a means of protection. And that actually reminded me of Salandra from the High Republic, who has a literal shield because she believes that as a Jedi, it's way more important to be a protector than to have a weapon. So I thought that was a cool little parallel to Salandra's way of thinking, regardless of how well Mace always follows that. I did like that little reference there that reminded me of Salandra. So it sounds like Azita might be willing to sell the formula to Mace, despite the fact that she's got a lot of bidders already, because she notices that he has a vaccine scar, which is the same one that she has, which is unique to their home world of Harun Kal. And so that kind of makes her be like, okay, this person's from my home planet. That's cool. That's something that we have in common. We kind of understand each other in a unique way because we're both from what sounds like it's a pretty difficult place. And while she's telling him this, what we see behind them is up on a ledge, a little ways behind them, there are two people that are looking down and watching them, and they are called Duskweavers of the Haddle Path. And this is something that is unique to this comic. It sounds like a creation of Marc Bernardin's, but I'm not really sure what that means. I'm not sure if it's a cult. It could be a crime syndicate. It could be, I don't even know what it is, but we're probably going to find out in future issues. So this was just kind of like a little taste of, okay, we have an adversary who is probably a powerful group of people on this planet based on just the vibe of these characters that are also after Azita. And I bet Mace is probably going to have to face them, fight them in some way. Who knows? My only thing that I wasn't huge on in this particular scene is they're standing up there on that ledge and they're looking down, listening to Mace and Azita's conversation, and they're talking to each other as well. And I'm just kind of like, I kind of don't buy it that Mace wouldn't realize that there's people up there, especially because in the image, it looks like they're really not that far away. Like, it seems like he would have at least heard them, if not sensed them with the Force. So I was kind of a little bit like, about that, because I kind of had a hard time suspending my sense of disbelief that Mace wouldn't know that those people were up there. Because I feel like the Mace that I would expect would be aware of that. So I don't know. Maybe that will be explained. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe they actually were farther away than it looked like to me in the image. I don't know. But that was really my only thing to kind of be like, I wonder what that's going to be about. But yeah, so I'm expecting we will see these people again. We'll probably find out more about the Dusk Weavers and what they're doing and what their goal is. And then maybe we'll see Mace put in a position where he has to deal with them in some sort of way. But I did think that these 2 issues were a cool introduction to the series, getting to see Mace in action on missions, especially getting 2 missions like that back to back. You get the sense that the Jedi Council is probably keeping him pretty busy. And keep an eye out for an upcoming video where I am going to be covering the next issues in this comic as well. But let me know in the comments if you're planning on reading this series, or if it sounds interesting to you, or your feelings about Mace Windu. I feel like he's one of those characters that you just love him or you can't stand him. And yeah, we've got people on all sides of that issue for sure. And thanks so much for joining, guys. I hope that y'all have a great rest of your day. Bye, y'all.